Welcome to this EMA Consultancy podcast. I'm delighted to be joined today by EMA Executive Director Ian Robertson and consultant Lorna Lee. Today we're going to be discussing the findings of EMA's latest annual Total Reward and Workplace Survey. Ian and Lorna have analysed the results of this comprehensive survey, and in this episode we'll provide an overview of the key findings across pay trends, employee benefits, pensions and working arrangements in the social housing sector. So let's dive in. Welcome, Ian, and welcome, Lorna.
Thank you, Stuart.
Right, Ian, I'll put you on the spot. Let's just give our listeners a brief overview of what the survey is. So it's in its fifth year. Can you start by just giving that overview and its significance for social housing organisations?
Thank you, Stuart. The survey is completed by housing organisations operating within England and Wales. We collect a range of data relating to employee benefits, which can include information on car allowances, pay, what's happening within the sector in regard to increases in salary. We also look at pensions as well as other employee benefits we're seeing coming within the sector, such as new trends, flexible working, that kind of thing. At the end of it, we compile the data and provide the information to organisations who have completed the survey.
Thanks, Ian. So, Lorna, let's take a look at annual leave trends. This is something that's been picked up in the survey. So the report highlights some interesting developments in annual leave entitlements. Can you just share what's changing in this area, particularly around the increasing popularity of buying leave?
Yeah, of course. So, the benefits of offering employees more than their minimum stats entitlements are really well understood in all sectors, aren't they? So, enhanced annual leave is a common way for employers to attract talent and help their workforce achieve a healthy work-life balance. And it increases the levels of morale and motivation and decreases the level of work-related stress. Offering additional paid holiday can also significantly reduce sickness levels and the loss of valuable members of staff. Some employers, such as Facebook, are going further and offered unlimited holidays to attract new talent. But this isn't evidenced in the housing sector, not as yet, and maybe not for a long time, if ever. But, it's interesting to see where other sectors are going when maybe pay isn't the only thing that's attracting new generations into the workforce today. So in terms of annual leave entitlements in the housing sector, the one that we're looking at now, we've witnessed over the years increases in entitlements. Organisations are realising the need to design benefit programmes to suit a variety of generations in the workforce today. There's an increased desire to offer a better work-life balance. So the traditional approach to annual leave has also changed to accommodate the ever-changing needs of multi-generational employees. Companies are thus finding it necessary to be more flexible about their approach to leave requirements. So in terms of buying and selling leave, this is now commonplace within the housing sector. Some organisations, however, will only allow staff to buy leave due to issues around working time regulations and the monitoring of statutory requirements, etc. They have become more popular because they give employees more control over their work-life balance. They can tailor their annual leave entitlement to their personal needs and take time off when they need it. For employers, in terms of buying an annual leave, it's cost neutral and can have tax savings implications even.
Thanks, Lorna. Again, I think we've spoken about this in previous podcasts, just about the challenges that people are facing within the workplace, especially around the multi-generational employees that we're now finding. I think you've said in the past, there's sort of 5 generations working in the workplace at one time.
Yeah, exactly that. And so whereas, say, my age, I may be, people would say, money rich but time poor. I'm not a massive fan of that terminology, but it says what it needs to say. The younger generation, they might want less holiday and more pay in their pay packet, or ever they may want sabbaticals, or they may want to buy some annual leave and do that long trip of 6 weeks to Australia or something. So
it's real flexibility. I think that's
it's about flexibility.
The key word here, isn't it? So, which brings us on to the next question. Ian, flexible and hybrid working. I know in previous surveys we've talked a lot about this and how it's evolved and how it's changed the workplace. It's a key feature in most social housing organisations now. Did the survey reveal anything about these arrangements changing within the sector, or is it fairly static?
Yeah, I think it's important here to just give a bit of history, Stuart. Pre-COVID-19, we found that most organisations within the sector operated flexible working, in other words, flexi-time schemes, but they didn't implement flexible working with the ability to work from home. COVID-19 changed all of that, and most organisations have flexible working with the ability to work from home 1, 2, 3 days a week. We are finding now that certainly some organisations are encouraging staff to come back into the office, at least working 4 days a week. But what will be interesting going forward is the Donald Trump effect, and I'm sure we've all heard of Donald Trump and his views and ideas on flexible working. And he's certainly encouraging all federal workers within the United States to come back into work, in other words, work 5 days within the office. We're also finding that some of the American companies, Tesla being a good example, as well as Meta, they are requiring them to come back into the office. And I'm wondering if this is going to slowly impact in housing associations as well as other companies within the UK, where people will require staff to come back into the office. So it'll be interesting to see what the implications of that will be and how that will impact on flexible working and also the retention of staff. Certainly, when we advertise a job these days, there's an expectation that people will be able to work from home 2-3 days a week, but that could change going forward. We just have to wait and see.
Very interesting. I thought we were going to get away without mentioning the T word there, Ian, but you did. At least
No,
you did.
it impacts on us all these days.
But it is interesting what you say. I think probably every other week we see another company calling on staff to come back in, say 3 or 4 days a week, don't we? So it'd be interesting to see how this plays out over the next 12 months within the social housing sector.
It certainly will. And I think long term it will have an impact on organisations within the housing sector.
So can we just come back to employee benefits? Lorna, volunteer leave and health cash plans, they're gaining traction within the social housing sector. Why do you think they're becoming more popular and what impact are they actually having on employee well-being and retention?
Well, they're having a massive positive impact, and I think organisations are sort of recognising that, and we're seeing that in the reward survey and their rising popularity. So covering volunteer leave, organisations are beginning to recognise that their employees, especially the new generation employees coming into the workforce today, they're really passionate and eager to give back to others. However, the time to do this can be limited when you're working full-time. As such, housing organisations, they've started to provide the opportunity for their employees to do this by gifting them paid volunteer leave throughout the year, so they can give back something to their communities, something they feel passionate about, maybe a charity or a community initiative. And recent research has found that employees who participate in corporate purpose programmes through volunteering are 52% less likely to leave the company. And it has to be said, the enthusiasm for volunteering is consistent with the growing desire among today's employees for connection, learning, growth, and meaning through work. As such, volunteer leave is becoming more popular in the housing sector. Employees can choose a charity they are close to their hearts, or indeed volunteer at social events with an organisation. And it's true to say that a lot of the new generation coming in now, they want to work from home. But when it comes to volunteer leave, they want to be out there, giving something back to society. And it's a real balance there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's almost, these are softer benefits in some ways, aren't they, rather than the hard cash, what you get at the end of the month.
And that's what organisations are looking at. If they've only got a limited pot of cash they can give out, what else can they give out that doesn't involve that cash pot, but is looking at all the generations in the workforce today and how they can flexibly organise their benefits package to cover everyone. And it is soft benefits, you're right.
Again, we've talked about this before, haven't we? The brand and of an organisation and what does that stand for if you're trying to attract a new employee?
So if an employee is going on volunteer leave, volunteering within the community, what's that saying about your brand?
Exactly.
Those people that are attending those community events or those charities say, well, look what they're doing. They're a fabulous brand. Why wouldn't you look at going to work for them?
So the other thing we were talking about was just the
health cash plans.
Yeah, be interested to hear about that as well, Lorna, please.
So they've really raised in popularity. Basically, cash plans directly address the rising demand for accessible healthcare within the UK today. I think we all know how hard it is to get ourselves into accessible healthcare. So by offering financial support for early intervention and preventative care, health cash plans really can help keep employees healthy, present and focused at work. And recent studies have also shown that employees with access to health cash plans, they experience reduced absenteeism, increased productivity and improved morale. So offering health cash plans really demonstrates a commitment to employee wellbeing. And that's what the workforce are looking at today. So boosting morale and fostering a positive work environment, and it really helps attract top talent. So in the housing sector this year, we have seen another move towards provision of plans for all levels of employees. So all levels of employees receive this benefit. They continue in popularity, and we do expect this trend to continue. So the cost of healthcare schemes, they can vary depending on what's covered within the scheme and the level of cover required. So say in flexible benefit schemes, you might, if you have access to flexible benefit schemes within housing, you might want to add your dependents onto that health cash plan as part of the flexible benefit schemes, which we are seeing as well in the sector. Our recent work has evidenced that not all employees are aware of the full range of benefits these health plans can cover. So, when I'm doing organisational reviews and we've got this health cash plan book, so what does that cover? Do employees know that they can have their physiotherapy? They can have their eyes tested, but do they know they can access grief counselling? Do they know they can access money counselling? So, it's really important that organisations continually reinforce their plan to their employees and what they cover to ensure full usage and value for money.
That's quite interesting, isn't it? It's all very well having these benefits, but if you're not actually articulating what the benefit is and the extent of the benefit, again, coming back to explaining what an organisation stands for, if it's supporting staff at all these different levels, it's really important that story's told, really, isn't it? When you're going through the recruitment process or when you're retaining staff.
Exactly that as well. And I think it's just sort of knowing your employees, knowing who they are, talking to them, making sure they're aware of what their benefits package is and how you put that across to your employees as well. Are you using just technology to put that across, or are you actually physically talking about it?
Very interesting that, Lorna. Thank you very much for that. Ian, can we just bring you in on perhaps something slightly drier topic, pension schemes? So the survey shows a continued move towards defined contribution pension schemes. What are the implications of this shift for both employers and employees, and how do you think it's reshaping the housing sector?
I think it's been going on for many years now, Stuart. Certainly we've seen a lot of organisations not offering final salary pension schemes to new staff and moving to defined contribution schemes. So I think that will continue. In fact, there's very few organisations actually offer new staff final salary pension schemes within the sector. And it's really down to costs. The cost of offering a final salary pension scheme is very different and certainly a lot more expensive than a defined contribution scheme. And bearing in mind the pressures on costs that organisations are facing, if you've got a mechanism to control costs such as the defined contribution scheme, organisations will choose to do that. The other thing that we're finding in the sector is about flexible choices for individuals. And we're seeing some organisations offering the ability for people to come out of the pension scheme and take increased salaries. And I think we'll find that that will continue within the sector, that organisations will say to staff, you can either have a pension or you can have increased salaries. And certainly what we're finding is the younger employee will probably go for increased salaries rather than having a pension scheme. But it's a case of just wait and seeing how that pans out within the sector.
That's very interesting, isn't it? I'm sure we could do a whole podcast for the future implications of that, couldn't we? But let's keep an eye on that for next year's survey. So one of the key things that the survey looks at are pay trends and retention strategies. This is something we've looked at in our previous podcast, which listeners can go back to that if they want a bit more detail. But let's just pick up on it again, Lorna. So pay awards over the last year mainly range from 4 to 6%. How are organisations balancing these awards with market competition and retention needs?
I mean, organisations really do need to recognise that pay awards, they need to be affordable to the organisation, don't they? But we're also aware that if they don't keep pace with the market, staff will leave and it will prove difficult to recruit and retain staff for organisations within the housing sector. So the big issue that organisations are facing now from April 25 is the increase in NI payments and how organisations are dealing with this. So what we're starting to see are organisations reducing the April pay award to ensure it's affordable. I think we've covered before where when we started our research in November for housing sector pay awards from April 25, we were looking between 2 and 4%. But since the budget, organisations are budgeting around 2%. So that's a drop because they need to get that money from somewhere for the national insurance. So they're getting it from their pay award. And that seems to be what is happening across the board. And they're also looking closely at how services are delivered to try and reduce costs, the use of technology, etc., coming in more and more in housing. And we see that in the recruitment trends within housing organisations.
I think this is something we're going to be talking about for a long time, isn't it, really, in terms of what the impact of this and how it's reshaping both the service delivery and employee pay. So let's pick up on this again. So just jumping back to healthcare benefits, Ian, the survey highlights increasing adoption of health cash plans and employee assistance programs. How do you think they're affecting organisation strategies for employee well-being?
Certainly, there's a continuing focus on the well-being and providing support to staff, either through improved healthcare, which cash plans provide, or mental health well-being through the employee assistance program schemes. I think these programs will continue to be prevalent within the sector and probably increase in popularity, simply because of one factor, and that is that organisations offering this, the managers are seen to be neutral. They will not be involved. It's externally dealt with. And I think bearing in mind employment legislation that we're seeing coming through, that it's important that there's a separation there when organisations are dealing with these kind of issues, and the people or employees have the option to go to external providers to get that support, help and assistance. The other thing that we need to be thinking about is it's probably cheaper for organisations who are providing this benefit long term, so staff wellbeing will improve and they won't see people going on sick as much as they used to.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Let's just look at the sector challenges. There's many. So, Lorna, housing organisations are grappling with numerous challenges. We've talked about the rising costs, the NI. Just sum up for our listeners how you think these external pressures will be influencing pay, benefits, and overall employee terms and conditions.
Well, obviously, many housing organisations are struggling, as all sectors are, with affordability when it comes to keeping pace with inflationary wage and cost increases. I mean, for me, to ensure stability, it's crucial that housing organisations focus on retaining and upskilling their current teams. What I mean by this is by investing in your current workforce, companies can ensure that employees are better equipped to tackle the various challenges ahead, minimising the need for costly and time-consuming recruitment processes. So when faced with rising salaries, housing organisations that can't afford to meet the increased costs can employ creative solutions. Instead of offering cash raises, you may want to consider adding additional benefits such as flexible working patterns, etc. Many employees, especially the new employees coming into the workforce today, they value these options over pay rises, making them attractive alternatives for both parties. I mean, it's true to say, when you're trying to get on the housing ladder and get a mortgage, you want more cash in your wage packet, which is where flexibility really does come into its own. So more and more housing organisations are operating flexible benefit schemes. These types of schemes, and I know Ian's just alluded to it previously, they're really popular in the private sector, and that's coming over to the housing sector now. So, for example, some are providing flexible cash pots for the lump sum that employees can use to create bespoke benefits packages to their personal needs. So we see flexible benefits becoming a major feature of housing sector reward packages in the next 5 years.
So, as we said earlier, flexibility seems to be the key word here, doesn't it, Lorna?
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? And it's such a simple word, isn't it? But it sort of says what it needs to say in all aspects of pay and reward, really, and the employee experience within an organisation.
It does really. And I think, again, let's pick this up again in future podcasts. So, Ian, I'll just bring you in to just a very quick summary. Looking to the future, how do you see employee rewards and workplace practices evolving in the housing sector over the next 12 months? I know we've got a lot of legislation coming in. We've got NI. Just quickly sum it up for our listeners.
I think a lot will come down to affordability, certainly with the national insurance increases and how that will free up cash to make any changes to employee benefits. But I think the other thing, certainly in the short term, will be employment rights bill and the variety of changes that will be made through there, because this will have an impact on the reward packages that people are able to offer and the benefits as well. So, for example, organisations have got to grapple with increased rights to statutory sick pay, also the unpaid paternity and paternal leave, a new statutory right to be paid bereavement leave, enhanced maternity protection. So there are a range of benefits that need to be built into the packages that organisations are offering. So in the short term, I think organisations are going to be grappling with the impact of employment legislation and also the concerns about increases in costs. And they will probably not be very creative in offering reward packages which will excite staff.
Thank you so much, Ian and Lorna, for sharing your expertise and insights into the survey results. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. We have done another podcast on the Total Reward and Workplace Survey. This was focusing on pay trends in the housing sector and the impact of changes to employers' national insurance. It's a bit of a deeper dive. Look out on our social media channels for that. It's there for you to listen to. And if you'd like any more information about the survey, please do not hesitate to get in contact with Ian or Lorna via LinkedIn. Thank you again, Ian and Lorna, and catch up soon.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you.